Come for our miles of pristine beaches and vibrant art scenes. Stay for our diverse cultural experiences. Plan your trip now, Miami and MiamiBeach.com. On this season of the Leading with Audacious Confidence podcast, we share stories from corporate executives and tips from those who coach them to high performance on what it really takes to build and keep your confidence in this fast-paced, ever-changing world of business, and how they inspire others to lead with confidence. Be ready to take lots of notes because there's always some juicy nuggets coming your way. Welcome to this episode of Leading with Audacious Confidence. I'm your host, Alicia Curry, and I have a really amazing guest today. We're going to talk about stuff we've never talked about before on the show, and I'm super excited. And it is Christie Garcia. Let me tell you about Christie, and then I'm going to bring her on, and we're going to have this conversation. So Christie is a leadership coach, speaker, facilitator, and founder of the Digital Mindful Choice Leadership Academy. She has 17 years of experience in sales, recruiting, and coaching. In 2009, Christie had a life-changing fall from a 30-foot fire escape. Yikes. Luckily, she walked away with no physical damage and a huge reality check to start living her next chapter. After 10 years within the walls of corporate business, working as a recruiter in the sales management in the healthcare industry, Christie increasingly grew frustrated watching talented individuals be promoted to management and fail to reach their leadership potential. She courageously left corporate America and started her leadership coaching business, Mindful Choice. Over the last 11 years, she has worked with business owners and leaders from the fast-growing and modern organizations, including Airbnb, Twitter, Movement for Life, and Sunrun. Christie builds programs that help individuals and teams maximize their impact through self-awareness, ownership, that's a big one, communication, alignment, and accountability. One of Christie's superpowers is helping her clients manage their ego and build authentic confidence so they can show up 100% in both business and life. Christie's modern approach is designed to be simple. You just have to choose to be 1% better every day. I see that I'm going to have there's so much synergy here with me and Christie, and we're going to have so much fun. So Christie, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much, Alicia. I am super excited to visit with you.
So I'm glad that we're having this conversation because ego is not something I've talked about before in any depth or anything. I may have mentioned it in passing, but I want to start this by diving into that. And then I want to talk a little bit about that fall that you had, because that's crazy. I don't want to gloss over that in your bio, but I do want to talk about the ego. And can you really define for our audience what you talk about when you're talking about ego?
Absolutely. I think the first thing that comes to mind when people think of ego is the loud, arrogant person in the room, right? The jerk, the guy that we don't get along with.
Guy or
whatever
gal.
that is. Yes, guy or gal. Actually, guy in a very neutral standing. We can all be jerks and we can all show up in our own egomanic way. And so what I have created a program around is normalizing the ego. The ego is just our unconscious brain. It is the unconscious habits, mindsets, and beliefs that every single one of us have. It's the behaviors we do that we don't even know we're doing that sabotage our good intentions. And so my goal is to go into organizations, work with entrepreneurs and leaders within fast-growing organizations to really teach them how those unconscious habits, behaviors, and beliefs are holding them back, whether it's starting their business, whether it's growing their business, or leading their team and communicating. We all have ego tactics that sabotage our success as a whole. And whether it's at work or home, it happens.
Absolutely. So thank you. I wanted to get that distinction out there because some people immediately might have that thought that, oh, well, my ego doesn't get in the way because I'm not a jerk. So I wanted to make sure that was clearly defined as we have this conversation about the ego.
Yes.
That we're not talking necessarily egotistical person. We're talking about that subconscious mind that's driving our behaviors that we're not aware of. So thank you.
Yes. Such great clarification. It's so funny that the thing I hear the most when I bring up the word ego is I'll tell people what I do. You know, I help people manage their ego and identify it. It's like, oh, my boss needs that. And it's just really funny. It's a lot of times those are the people that need it the most, right? It's when we don't take ownership of our own part and we think everybody else around us is
it's to blame. It's the blame game.
Yeah, absolutely.
And instead of looking internally and looking from that third person view of yourself, like really stepping out of yourself and seeing how your actions are affecting everybody else, you're looking at everybody else's behavior and say, oh, well, they need this more than anybody else. Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, they're definitely the problem.
But when you're pointing, what's happening? 3 fingers are pointing back at you.
Absolutely. I love that. Yes.
You got to recognize that. Talk to me about this fire escape fall, because I read that and I'm like, wow, you survived that without any physical damage. What happened?
You know, it was one of those really crazy moments in life. I feel like to this day, I feel like it didn't happen to me. It's amazing. I think that shows how powerful the brain is. It just creates these experiences in life we can easily forget or move on from. But yeah, my fire escape. So I lived in a building in San Francisco and I was out walking my dog like 7:30 in the morning, 8:30 in the morning. And I got locked out of the building, which was actually a pretty common occurrence. The building naturally locked behind you. And so it locked behind me, it locked the door. And typically we would just go to the top of the roof and crawl down our fire escape and walk into our kitchen window. Probably not a good idea looking back, but we did it a lot. And so what that morning was a little more unique. It was raining. I had my dog. And so I went to my neighbor's house and we share a platform, fire escape platform. And so I was like, hey, can we just go through your window? I need you to hold some Christmas trees. I was getting ready to have a holiday party that I just put in my window and I need to crawl through and the dog's going to get wet, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, yeah, let's go out the bedroom instead of the roof. So this was a new approach.
Well, okay, a couple things there. First of all, things seem like a good idea at the time, right?
Like, genius idea at the time.
Seems like a good idea. And then a new approach. Okay, so sometimes thinking something new is you know, it's like, oh yeah, we could do this. And then
sometimes plan A is the best plan. So we went through her bedroom window, and as we were walking across, I am not a normal person, and so I wasn't looking down, which I guess normal people look down when they walk from high places. So I'm just looking straight ahead, walking where I'm going, and I walk right into the 2x2 manhole that goes down to the ground. So yeah, somehow I miraculously made it through all 3 2x2 squares on this staircase. It's still to this day just shows that when it's not your time, God has a plan bigger than us. And yeah, I got to the bottom and somehow landed more like a cat. So on the second floor, my girlfriend who was watching this whole thing, poor thing, said I kind of flipped over on the second floor and went through, now facing down more like a cat style. And so I landed on my wrists and my knees instead of my internal body. Yeah. So nothing got smashed, nothing got damaged that way. I had some ligament issues and 5 stitches on my chin. But yeah, it was just more of an experience that goes, okay, this is crazy. And you
live to tell about it.
I live to tell about it, and I better not take advantage of it, because this was a moment in life that you're getting a second chance.
Yeah. And so that was a catalyst for really shifting you, like saying
it was
something more with my life.
And really, I think what it did is it built my leadership academy. You know, I think in that moment, I was living a really great life. I was happy. I had all these friends. I traveled the world. I was making great money. I had an amazing apartment. Life was good. On paper, it was great. I actually even thought and truly believed I was happy. I think I was happy. I think the difference was I didn't know what fulfilled meant. I knew what happiness meant. And yeah, right.
Say
the big, powerful world.
Because that is so big. That is so big. A lot of times we think we're happy, but we're not being fulfilled. And we don't know that there's another level. Like even in leadership, absolutely. It's like you hit that level of leadership and you're like, oh, I've gotten to where I want to go. And there's still something nagging or emptiness. It's because it's not fulfilling you yet. Yeah. And so you might be happy with the position, but you're not fulfilled.
Absolutely. And I think the problem is you don't even know you're not fulfilled until you
just know
stop
something's
or
missing.
something happens, right? And I think that's what it took for me. This fall slowed me down enough to feel that emptiness. I think I kept myself so busy that I didn't even know I had a hole in my plan. And so that's what got me really curious about. It took about 2 weeks for me to slow down enough. I mean, the craziness, the crazy brain, and I'll get into like how this built my business, but like the crazy brain in that moment when I fell and I woke up. So I was unconscious for a few minutes. And so when I actually came to, I just remember I was a sales rep for medical devices at the time. And I remember waking up and I'm flat on the ground and I just think, okay, so you got to be able to wiggle your toes, and these are Grey's Anatomy days. So, it tells you how to be a doctor basically. Wiggle my toes, wiggle my fingers. Okay, I'm good. I'm not paralyzed. And so I roll myself over and the paramedics are getting there by this time. And I'm just like super annoyed. I had a party that night planned.
So listen, I got stuff to do. I don't have time for this.
Pretty much. Crazy girl was ready to get back to her party. I'm good. So these people get there and these poor paramedics are like, this chick is nuts. So they put me in.
People think that of me a lot too.
Right? The doer of all doers. And so they hauled me to the hospital, and I am just kind of, all right, wham, bam, get your product or get your x-rays, do your thing. So 4 hours later, I was released, and it was Thanksgiving the next week. So nothing really changed. I went home with my family, no big deal. I couldn't really do a few things because my arms were sore, but nothing crazy. And so 2 weeks later, I was on a call with my coach, and I'll never forget it. I'm a controller. I don't sit down. I don't have feelings. I'm good. And
give me 1 second with that, because you said you were on a call with your coach. And I want people to understand that successful people, driven people, leaders have coaches.
Yes.
You had a coach and you were happy.
Yes.
But something was still missing. And
absolutely.
Yeah. But you still had a coach, because I think coaching is so important. It's so, so important.
Oh, absolutely. I think, it's just like athletes. If they don't have coaches, they're not professional athletes. Not right. Absolutely.
So you're on your phone with your coach.
Yep. So I'm on my phone with the coach, and we're great. We're having good conversation. I always get my checklist. We always, keep kicking booty in life. And that day, I tell her about my fall, and it's so nonchalant. By the way, I fell 30 feet, but I'm good. I'm back to work. And she's like, hey, wait, excuse me, what? And so she said, okay, well, that's kind of crazy. Are you okay? So yeah, I'm good. I'm fine. And she said, okay, I'm going to ask you that again. How are you, Christie? I said, I am good. I'm back to work. Life is great. I'm a little annoyed that it slowed me down, but I'm good. And so she then asked one more time, how are you, Christie? And I will never forget. I've never cried that hard in my whole life. It was about 15 minutes of like that really ugly sobbing cry. I had no idea why I was crying. It was actually pretty terrifying. And it made me realize from then on out, I realized I wasn't okay. I had to kind of feel the emptiness, and it was like, why am I crying right now? What is this? What is going on? And ultimately, what I learned in the next, 3 to 4 months was that I was completely emotionally unavailable to my life. So I had all these people in my world, amazing people in my world, that I just wasn't available to. I was 29 years old. I hadn't been dating in probably 10 years. I wanted all these things. I wanted a family. I wanted a home. I wanted all these things, but it was just, I was busy traveling. I was busy building this amazing career and having all this fun in the world and making some money. And again, on paper, it looked brilliant, but there wasn't that fulfilling. There wasn't anybody that I would call and say, hey, I fell 30 feet and I really want to cry to you right now. And at the time, I didn't think that was important, but the reality is we needed that. And I think the thing that scared me the most in that moment is when I was in the hospitals selling my products, my favorite pastime was talking to patients who were there by themselves. And I never understood, why are you here by yourself? I came from a really big family, and there were always people everywhere. And so to think that someone would die in a hospital by themselves was kind of horrifying to me. Absolutely. It's very sad. And so I was always curious, why are you here? And the most common response you got is, I worked so much, I didn't have time for my family, or I provided and I was, working so hard to give them what they wanted that they weren't there when I actually retired and had time, or whatever. At the end of the day, it was always, I never had enough time for the personal side of my world.
Mm.
And it was really sad and it was really
Yeah.
heartbreaking. You know, I came from a
People live
divorced
to work
family.
instead of working to live.
Exactly. And most of these people were men, 60 plus men. Um, and I thought, oh my goodness, this is our generation.
Mm.
We are now going to, those hospitals are going to be full with women and men now because women are working just as hard. They are prioritizing their careers over their families, their friends, their dating, their marriages, their kids. And I just, it really scared me. I was one of those people. I was going to be that person in 20 years, 30 years. If I didn't change my ways, I was going to be alone. And that was always my biggest fear. And so I just started digging and figuring out what that was. And I learned that's that unconscious ego, the controller, protector ego that doesn't need anybody, that works hard, that throws themselves out there, is never, done accomplishing whatever goal they're wanting to accomplish. And you're just chasing this ghost and you forget about the human side of your world. And so from that day on, I started building my business of bringing humans back to work and getting balance and happiness in both business and life. Really identifying what success looks like in both categories. Because at the end of the day, 60 years old, 90 years old, your deathbed, your work success doesn't matter. I don't care who you are. It doesn't matter. So
that's powerful, because I always say that you bring your whole self to work and you bring your whole self back home. It's not compartmentalized. It's not like, well, okay, I'm leaving my home self now and I'm going to work. Whatever happened to home is walking with you into that door. And the same thing. So we're bringing our whole selves. And so we need to be whole, WHOLE.
Yes.
When we do these things, we need to be able to be whole individuals. Thank you for sharing that story. There's so much inside that story. I hope that when people are listening to this or watching it, if you're watching us on YouTube or listening to it, that you're really hearing what Christie is saying about not being fulfilled and not even recognizing the emptiness. I had that similar, I didn't have a 30-foot fall, but that realization that, wow, I've been doing for so long that I've neglected that emotional connectivity and being emotionally available in my life, because I've just been having to be the person that had to have it all together and had to have all this stuff. And, to be able to do all this stuff for the kids and for the family and for everybody else, everybody who calls, I need to be able to be that. Instead, well, who was that for me? And
absolutely. And a lot of times we over care for others because we don't know how to care for ourselves. Right. And it's like, we're not important enough, or we just don't even think about it. I don't think it's an intentional, we're not important enough. I think it's just my job is to take care of others.
Exactly. And so, and I feel like mothers fall very much, I hate using the word a victim, but unconsciously victim to that.
Absolutely. And that's what the ego does. It creates the victims and the martyrs. And I think it makes mothers martyrs to the world around them and victims to their own circumstance. And it's really unfortunate. I'm a new mom. I just adopted actually about 4 months ago. And so I'm learning how to be a businesswoman and a mom, and it's hard. The guilt is real. And balance is tough. Like the way a woman's brain works is so crazy with multitasking. The ability to be able to think about 47 different things
and patch the baby up while
exactly. And make sure that kids and dogs and families all fed and everybody's in the car at the same time. I always think my new rule now, my poor dog has been left at my sister's house already. And I'm like, okay, at least the kids were in the car. And my new rule is now at least the living creatures are in my car.
The kids, you got to have the baby bag and all the stuff that goes in the baby bag. You have the jackets and the hats and the thing and the pacifier and all the stuff. All the stuff.
I now have my own mom bag in the car because I've left my own jacket, like getting everybody else's jackets in the car.
And
my jacket got left. Yeah, exactly. I'm like, okay, we're going to have a survival bag just for mom. It does not get removed from the car.
Been there. I mean, mine are older now. My youngest is 15. So I've had from 25 to 15, I have 3. 25, 20, and 15. So I've
amazing.
weathered that storm, and but every level, it's a different set of, you have to keep shifting into a new, you're not carrying the baby bag and all that, but there's still other things. You can't just
right now there's cleats and mitts and homework and
yeah,
there's
never
so
ending.
many things. It's wild.
I want to ask you about the 3 egos that run your life and business. Can you break that down for us? What are those 3 egos?
Yeah, so I have found that there's 3 egos. We've got the complier, the controller, and the protector. The trick is to use all 3 in order to be our best self. The reason for it is I look at the ego as both our strengths and our weaknesses. If we use our egos at about a 33%, we're getting the most out of our thoughts, our beliefs, and we're being very intentional with our behaviors. When we cross over that 33%, typically we're unconsciously using it. And that's when we start to, take care of me more than the we. And so the complier's strengths and weaknesses, the complier is the warm, caring, big heart, super compassionate. They care about the people. They set good, or they're loyal. They do all the things that take care of the person and the people in the room. Unfortunately, the downside of, or the overused of those strengths is that you can put too many people before yourself. So you never take care of yourself. You can overcommit because you don't want to disappoint anyone. You can, you struggle to delegate because you don't want to burden someone, or you don't know how to hold people accountable because you want to avoid the confrontation or the toughness of that conversation. You can be passive, right? Anytime you say the word "I'm fine," that's coming from our complier ego. That's like, blow it off. I don't want to deal with confrontation right now.
Right.
But you're not fine. That's a terrible word, and that is a huge sign that your ego's in the room. So that's the complier. The protector is where all of our values stand, our integrity, our authenticity, our truth. Unfortunately, that can make us a very black and white thinker. And so it's also where we can be stubborn or arrogant or overly confident. We can also, exactly. Yep. We can come across as aloof or not available because emotionally, in order to have boundaries, we either have to be all in or all out. And so again, it's very extreme beliefs here. The thing about the protector, though, it's got a very big ability to see the bigger picture, very into details, but they're motivated about being right. And so that's where they find their worth and value. If I'm not right, then I'm wrong and I have no worth or value. And so that's a big reason why you get a lot of stubbornness or confrontation there. The controller is the opposite end of the complier, where it's focused on being the best and winning. And so it's competitive. It's always striving for success. It reaches the finish line. It's incredibly results driven, lots of passion, lots of excitement, lots of positive energy, quick thinkers, quick actors, like you just A to Z immediately. Now with that though, unfortunately, we have that freight train energy. So a lot of times we'll get to the finish line by ourselves, get on the bus, we're going to run you over. Yep, exactly. So we talk, a good talk, but we don't always have that emotionally available, or we put tasks before people. And so we don't always think about the people side of the business or our homes. And so again, it's finding that balance in order to really bring people to the finish line with us, especially as you become a leader, as you become a parent, as you become a spouse, running a business. You can't get to the finish line by yourself or you're not winning. And so I think that's the real shift when controllers have to kind of recognize, like, wow, that controller energy got me here and it was great and it was super fun. Until we have to be that we player, and then it's going to hurt you.
It's the Tour de France. We're a team.
Yes, absolutely.
We're an individual, but we're a team.
Yes, we go together. We ride
together. Right. Wow, that is amazing. I've never heard it like articulated that way before. The complier, the protector, and the controller. And you said 33%, is that 33% in each of those, or is it 33% of our activities need to be in one of those?
Ideally, we use all 3 together. An example would be, right, let's say, so to be a really well-balanced leader, we want to make sure that we're compassionate and we think about the people. We also want to stand by our values and hold our own integrity and speak truth. in order to hold people accountable to get the results we need, right? So that is using the strengths of all three egos to get to the finish line.
Awesome.
Yeah. So if you want to look at it as a behavioral thing, an example, confidence. Confidence is a great behavior. We all want that. We all strive for that. Overused confidence is arrogance, right? And so everything has that kind of turning point. When does it hurt you?
When does it become toxic? Then
exactly.
when do you cross that line into toxicity instead of the strength? Nice. I love it. So how can people use this then to communicate more effectively when they're in a room with difficult people?
I love this question because at the end of the day, the egos run every single conversation we have. The good ones, the bad ones, the ugly ones. And so really knowing your own ego. Why are you responding the way you're responding to? Why does whatever you're talking about matter? That's the most important question because that's what's going to trigger you, right? And so whether your ego is the one that gets triggered first or someone else's, once there's an ego in a room, everyone's going to follow suit unless someone's conscious enough to say, hey, wait a second, we're getting heated. We need to, take a step back and say, why does this really matter? And so a lot of times it's one, identifying the egos in the room. Why are they there? Why are they showing up? And why are they triggered? And once we can be conscious enough to ask those questions, then we can actually change the conversation. Obviously, you can't change people, but you can change your own approach, which can change how people show up. And if we can get in the habit of changing our own approach versus judging how someone else is responding or reacting to us, then we can actually change the conversation. Usually what happens is someone says something in a jerk tone, we meet them in our jerk tone, or we shut down and passively say nothing. And now we've got two egos communicating, right? Nothing beneficial comes from that place, just a bunch of stress and annoying conversation. And either people walk out upset or someone has appeased the other to get the conversation done. And so recognizing where's the balance there. When we can understand how the egos are showing up in the room, which egos are, not just our own, but how our team members are showing up with their egos. We now know what the motivators are. We've got egos that want to be liked. We have egos that want to be right. And we have egos that want to win. And if we are using all of those traits and the strengths of each ego, we can actually get to a lot more productive conversations, easier conversations through just identifying the needs and wants of everybody without having a needs and wants conversation. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So it's all around emotional intelligence and understanding how to read the room. And I love that. Those who want to be liked, those who want to be right, and those who want to win.
Yes.
That's the three egos right there.
The motivating conversation topics.
Yeah. You need to understand identify who is what and where are you in the middle of this conversation. Are you one of those? I'm hearing this and I don't know if you know about the drama triangle.
Yes.
Right. And I'm feeling drama triangle in this, like, the victim, the perpetrator, and the rescuer. It's like, who is sitting in the room with you? With the victim, the perpetrator, and the rescuer. And how do you get off the drama triangle? So what is the opposite of ego then? Once you're understanding these dynamics, how do you enter the room what do you call that? If it's not ego, what is I
always call it our best self. I think when your best self can show up, because at the end of the day, that drama challenge, you can't have drama unless there's an ego feeding the drama, right? Like ego brings the drama and the ego either entertains the drama or a best self says, hey, we're not going to entertain this and we're going to have another best self conversation, and it elevates everybody out of that ego, that drama triangle. If you look at the perpetrator, the victim, and what was the other one? Perpetrator, victim,
the hero, the rescuer.
The rescuer. So those are actually those are the three egos. You've got the victim that typically is your complier. You've got the perpetrator who's typically your protector, and then the rescuer that is your controller, right? And so if we can identify which one are you bringing to the table, or which one is at the table, now we can get curious why. I always say the easiest way to manage ego is asking questions, because the ego wants to judge, blame, accuse, critique. And if we can take all those things out and just start asking questions and getting curious and remembering that there's a human behind this. No one's intentionally being a jerk. No one's intentionally causing problems. No one's intentionally being difficult at the table. something has been triggered, right? Whether it's a current story or an old story, excuse me. There's something
they woke up and chose violence against you today. They woke up and
today,
said, I'm just going to cause an
difficult.
argument. I don't care who I'm talking to. I am just going to cause an argument. Nobody wakes up like that, really, usually.
Not consciously. Now, I will say unconsciously, that's exactly what the ego does, right? Like, how many times have you had someone in your life where you're kind of already upset with them, you're a little resentful, and they really can't say anything right? I mean, there's no way they're going to say anything that you will agree with, that you're going to say, yeah, you're a nice person. Like, you've already made up your mind. You don't like this person. I'm so angry with them and I'm upset, right? Like, that's the ego. Where someone else can come in and say the exact same thing with the exact same tone, but you don't have the resentment. So you hear it differently and they're not a jerk. And that's a perfect example of how the egos work. It isolates people. It puts you on your own island. And it kind of pegs like, who's going to make me happy today? And when we can unconsciously be aware of our part in those relationships, we can then say, hey, why am I so resentful? Most likely it's something they've done in the past, either one they weren't aware of, or they unconsciously were meeting your ego, or you were meeting theirs, and feelings got hurt. And it just needs to be a simple conversation that says, hey, this happened. Most of the time when that happens, people can acknowledge like, wow, that wasn't my intention. I'm really sorry. Where a lot of times the ego doesn't let us do that. And so when we can show up as, you know, the person that can take ownership and bring our best self to the table, we speak our truth, and it's not personal. I think the number one thing to get out of drama is it's not personal. If we can remove the personal part of it and take ownership of our part, it's a completely different approach that can kill the drama.
Yeah. And that's why I love the 4 agreements, because it talks about that. Talks about don't take it personally. And I'm a big proponent of that. Look at it as data. Sometimes things you have to boil it down to data. And another reason why I love the assessments that I use too is in helping people understand their motivations, understand their needs instinctively in certain situations, so that it does remove the person. So that when there's conflict, it removes the personality and the personal nature of certain things out of the conversation. And we're dealing on a different level. The conversations are on a different level. So I'm loving all of this. Let me think, before I get into rapid fire, because we're jumping into there soon. There's something else I wanted to ask about, because the work that you're doing is really impacting leaders at a different level. What is the level of leadership that you usually work with? Is it the C-suite? Is it managers and above? What's your sweet spot in there?
Great question. I would say the top down. So a lot of times I work with fast growing organizations who I'll start with usually their executive team, and then we work it down into the leadership and management team. And I think that's really where this work is powerful. You know, a lot of times I'll get into executive coaching, and it's great. It's wonderful. And executives are changing and they're maximizing their self. But it's really hard to push this work down if you don't teach it, right? And a lot of times the ego is a hard thing to teach. It's a hard thing to talk about. And so if you can open it up to all levels of your organization, now you've got a standard communication that everybody can talk about. So I really recommend doing a top down. Right now I've got C-suite all the way down to first line managers and leads, upcoming leaders, and they're all in one room. There's about 15 of them. And, you know, they're all having a great conversation. And it just, again, bringing humans back to business. When we can open up a conversation that's not real tactical. I mean, we talk business, but it's really the human component to keeping the business functioning with less drama. And so when you can start having that conversation with just the humans in the room, and the titles are there, but you kind of drop those titles because now everybody's learning about their ego together. It's really incredibly powerful and just super fun. It's a fun conversation to be had. So I would say top down, get everybody talking about it. Normalize the ego, the drama, the conversations, and your communication will completely shift. The alignment of your team, the collaboration, the accountability, it all just shows up differently.
It's so, so important. You're developing a culture that's completely different, that's open, transparent, vulnerable, accountable. It shifts the culture so much when you're able to do that, and not because if you just work with one group, they're getting it, but it's not affecting the rest of the organization. It really has to it has to go both ways, because now you as a leader, you're communicating on a different level to people who haven't gotten that yet. So their egos are still going to be triggered. And at some point, their triggering is going to set you off. You'll be up here, and then it's like, oh, I can't deal with this person. And then
absolutely.
you're
and that's
right
another ego tactic. Mm-hmm. Yeah. A lot of times what happens is the ego. So as the ego evolves, it evolves with it. It grows with us. It's never going to go away. Mm-hmm. And so as it evolves and we learn to manage our ego, what the ego then starts to do, instead of judging someone for being a jerk, it's like, oh no, I now know that they're being a jerk, but I know why they're being a jerk, and they should fix that. Because I have now fixed that. I've now learned that that's a choice, right?
Yeah.
And so now they're judging people for a different reason than when they were judging. It doesn't feel as mean. It doesn't feel as judgmental. It doesn't feel as ego driven because you're conscious of it.
Yeah.
But yes, it does create a new level of distance between management and employees. Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's super important for everyone to get this understanding and build this part of their emotional intelligence together, because it creates, like you're saying, a different kind of rift now, a different gap in awareness and in how you approach everything. So love this conversation so much. Because this is where the rubber meets the road. There's so many times in organizations, they're so focused on strategy. What's going to get us to the next level? What's the new thing? What's the KPIs? What's the this? What's the that? And they're not focused on the relation. How do we relate to one another? That's a very, very vital component of an organization, and the growth and productivity of an organization is how are we relating to get the work done? So thank you for sharing all of that great, wonderful information. And I'm sure the audience has been enlightened by this conversation. And I'm loving it. I know I am. I'm going to listen to this again. Well, I'm going to listen to it several times because I have to edit it, but I'm listening it to again from a different perspective to hear more, because now I'm hearing it because I'm asking you questions, but I want to hear it completely.
Absolutely.
So this is great. This is great.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Thank you for reaching out and raising your hand and saying you want to be on this podcast, because I'm excited to have you.
Awesome.
So I'm going to ask you a couple of rapid fire questions to end us off today. But before I do that, I do want to give you one opportunity to share anything that I didn't ask you that you think is important about this conversation around the ego that I didn't ask you about that you want to share.
I think we're in a time where the ego is really loud and present in our world. I think we live in a very fast-paced, society right now. I think the economy is creating a lot of stress for business owners and leaders.
The pandemic did.
We've been just year after year of something new, and I don't think that's going to end. I think this is just the new way of being. And so how do we navigate that? And really the only way to navigate that is focus on the things you can control. And the things you can control is your approach, is yourself as a leader, your thoughts, your motivators, what you do and why you do it. And the more you can dig into, this ego management, the easier it will be to feel happy, fulfilled, successful. Otherwise, you're constantly going to be stressed. You're going to be overwhelmed. You're going to get, feel like you're not doing enough. You're never doing, a good enough job. And so you're going to be chasing those ghosts forever. And when you can learn how to just be and find peace in the chaos, that is ego management at its finest. And your best self gets to show up, and you get to feel full at home, at work, and in every other avenue of your life. So I just encourage everyone, do the work. It will pay off, and it will make you even more successful than you are today. Get yourself a coach.
Yes,
if you're
get
interested
yourself
in Leadership
a coach.
Academy, reach out. I'd love to talk to you and how ego management can help you in your business.
Awesome. All right. So tell me, what is the biggest leadership mistake that you've ever made or was a victim of in your career?
Oh, there's so many. Oh, goodness.
I love the answer because, people think that we have to be these flawless human beings as we're leaders and stuff. It's like, listen, no.
You don't become a leader without being courageously
breaking a few eggs, right?
Yeah, you gotta fail to succeed.
This is why I love asking this question, because sometimes you make these mistakes and you think, I'm done for. Nobody's ever going to hire me again. Your confidence is shot. And so, I love asking this question because of that. It's like, you're still here, aren't you?
Absolutely. And, I think that's one of the biggest things I've learned over time. The fails is where we learn and we grow. And unfortunately, I think if you want early fail, it was not believing in myself and, probably not asking for enough money or not standing up in the room and saying, this is the client I want. Or today, I'm overcoming. During the pandemic 2020, I spent a ton of money on some different marketing opportunities and agencies and trying to get the help that I needed, and looked down the wrong path and spent way too much money that I'm still paying off and without the results, So I think there's just so many different things that we have tried and failed brilliantly at. I would say the current fail that I am overcoming at the moment is not taking action on building, the digital aspect of my business that allows me to have the freedom for being a parent right now. I've been talking about it for years, but I didn't actually build it.
We haven't actually done it. Yeah. Don't worry. Listen, we always feel, especially as small business owners, that we're behind the 8 ball. Like we're always out. We're like, oh my God, I should be so much further ahead than I am right now. And
right. Absolutely. And sometimes there's truth to that, right? Sometimes, for me, I should have been here 5 years ago, but my ego definitely got in the way. I took the simple route. I'm not gonna lie. I tried, I failed, and I just went back to what I know. And so, I think there's just truth in acknowledging that, which is why it's so important to know your ego as a business owner, as a leader, because it does hold you back. You don't even realize what it's doing until you look back and you're like, shoot, I should have done that. So I would say just, continuing to do the work, continuing to grow. My goal now is admit the failure sooner. Trying to
and move on.
Yes, my controller ego tries to justify my decisions probably a little longer than I should. It's like, nope, back up. Let's just admit it was wrong and take a different path. Yep.
Excellent. So what's the biggest leadership advice that you've ever gotten that you still implement today?
Oh, that's a good one. I think I had a coach. She was probably the second coach I hired when I was going through my coaching certification and really starting my business. And I would always call her when her name was Ellie Redding, and she's amazing. I doubt she'll ever hear this, but she's incredible. And she, she had these eyes. The first 6 months that I knew her, I wouldn't look her in the eye because she could just see right through me. And so I was like, nope, she'll know my truth. I'm not ready to admit it. And so once I finally had the courage to hire her as my personal coach, it was like I just knew she was going to get to the heart and there was no hiding anymore. And it was great though. So her big thing is, one, own my shit. Like I used to play small, I think, because I felt like I had bigger ideas and bigger things. So I was taught, don't be that big. And so, one, she showed me how being big and not leaving people behind, how it looked and how it felt, and that I can bring everybody with me. And I think I had in my head this skewed vision where if I play this big, then I have to leave my world back here behind. And so learning how to have that all, and I think that goes again into my, you can have success at home and work, and it doesn't matter how big you are in your career world, your world can be so simple and still so small. Like that's what I prefer. I like the simple life, but my business life is out here. And so knowing that I can have them both and they can go hand in hand.
But there is you can bring equilibrium to it. I don't want to use the word balance. I just didn't want to use the word balance.
I know, but it really is, right?
Balance is really hard to do.
So cliche,
but there can be an equilibrium of having a home life that's very private and small, and then having your work persona out here.
Yes.
And that's another reason I love building an alter ego, because the alter ego could be out doing all this stuff and you can be in your own little world doing your thing.
Yes.
So yeah, let the alter ego go. Build it big. You go do
your thing. Yes, you do you.
Yeah.
I know. Actually, I kept my maiden name for the alter ego. It's like that's her job, and
that's
this
her
is
job.
my other job. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So okay, I have this. This is a fun question. The next two are going to usually things that trip people up. So let me see how you do on this one. So this one is, if you were a castaway on a deserted island and you only had three things that could either be airdropped to you or washed up ashore, what would those three things be?
Oh, geez. Three things. I need my tea. I need some Earl Grey with cream. Can that be counted as one thing?
Yes.
Or does cream and tea have to be
one thing? Yes. How you make it with
my cup of tea. That just brings me inner peace every morning. Let's see. So some tea would be great. Probably some fire, something that I can make fire with.
Fire.
And oh, that's so hard. My survivalist inside me is like, what do I really need to survive?
One guest say, I need a Lear jet to land and come pick me up.
Right. Oh, I mean, if that's an option, that seemed like that probably wasn't an option.
I said, not even a seaplane with he's like, nope, I'm getting out of there fast.
Fair enough. Actually, I would say then let's deliver a party boat with all my favorite people on it, and let's just have a party on this desert island. Then we can go home together.
Party boat it is.
And my sense of party is more, not like it once was. So more family friendly party boat.
Yeah. But I love the tea. The tea keeps you calm, and then you get a party boat. Let's jet out of here. Yeah.
Right. Let's enjoy this island for a minute, and then we can go home.
And then we can go home. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So if you were a song or a song title that's in the world, I don't know if you're a music fan, but if you were a song, what would that song title be?
My song, my life song. When I met my husband, I told him, this is my song. If I ever die, this is the song you play at my funeral. I Was Here by Beyonce is my go-to.
I Was Here.
Yeah, it feeds my soul. Whenever I question what I'm doing, I play it, I blare it, I sing it, I scream it. Usually I'm crying by the end of it because it just reinvigorates everything in me.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yay.
Yeah.
And what are your top 3 favorite books? Or you can give me a book you're reading right now.
Oh, wow. Top 3 favorite books. Gosh, there's so many.
Or something you're reading now. If you can't narrow it down to 3, just give me what you're reading that you think is really great that our audience should check out.
Let's see. I love the book. I think Leaders Eat Last is a really interesting book. That's really fascinating. Daring Greatly is one of my, it was probably a life-changing book for me. So I always recommend that to people, especially if you have that controller brain that struggles with the emotional availability. It really
Daring Greatly.
Daring Greatly by Brene Brown defines vulnerability in a way that's powerful instead of, in my head at the time, it was weak. So that one's really good. And then Power of Now is always a really good go-to for me. I just, again, if you're feeling stressed at all, seeing Power Now kind of reground you and remind you that it's all going to be okay.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. How can people find you and reach you?
They can reach me on LinkedIn, social media, at Christie Garcia or Mindful Choice. My website is mindfulchoiceacademy.com. If they could go there and reach out, there's some freebies that they could learn a little bit more about the egos and how to be 1% better every day. Otherwise, let's connect and figure out how we can get more ego management into the business place.
Excellent. And we'll have all her contact information in the show notes. Thank you so much, Christie. This has been a marvelous, wonderful, incredible conversation. I've loved it.
Me too. Thank you very much. I love the work you're doing, and keep up the good work. The world needs more of it.
Thank you. Thank you. So with that, I'm going to encourage all of you to lead yourselves, lead your teams and lead your organizations with audacious confidence. Until next time, this is Alicia saying, hi.
Love it.